Welcome to Behind the Lash Chair. I'm your host, Alexis Weisenburger, founder and owner of AW Lashes. My goal is to help you as a lash artist grow with tips and tricks on lashing, becoming an entrepreneur, marketing, and so much more. This is an amazing place to find free resources and connect with lash artists all around the world. Let's get started. Welcome back, everyone, to this week's podcast. I'm so excited to have you listening, and you guys were asking so many great questions about Claire. And we did a podcast last week where I kind of told you her story and her hospital visits, but you guys were asking me awesome questions about more difficult questions. And I even brought up Nicole, who has a daughter, live with CDKL-5. And I thought she'd be amazing on this podcast because, like I mentioned in the previous podcast, she was the first person I called and just wanted to hear about Liv and her story and her life. So I'm so excited to have you, Nicole. And
Thank
really
you.
quick before I start, if you want to follow Liv because she's the cutest thing in the entire planet, it's life with Liv underscore CDKL5. So welcome, Nicole.
Thank you. Hi, happy to be here.
Yay. I just, I have to bring back the moment real quick where I called you before I knew anything really about CDKL5. Were you just like, when I called you, you're like, oh, this mom doesn't know much.
No, I didn't feel that way. It just, when I started Olivia's Instagram, it was for this reason exactly because when I was in your shoes, it was so hard for me, and I just wanted to connect with another parent who got it, who could give me information, who could make me feel, I guess, a little bit better and feel like I'm not so alone. So I was super excited when you reached out and we had our first conversation, and it was so
I,
amazing. So I appreciate it.
yeah, well, I remember the first thing you told me, and it now resonates where people ask me about, Claire and getting her head up and things like that. And I remember the first thing you said was, no, it takes kids with CDKL5 a million times longer. Like what will take a typical kid, you show them like 10 times, you are going to have to show Claire a million times to get that milestone.
Hmm. It does. It takes a lot of determination on their end and our end, right? I can
Yeah.
only imagine if we didn't continue with, the therapies and just constantly at home teaching everybody we know, like, hey, when you're with her, you need to do these things because we're using every minute that we can to teach, to teach, to teach, and to really help them have a really good quality of life.
Yeah, I sometimes don't even feel like I'm Claire's mom. I feel like I'm her therapist. Like we go to church and Claire's on our lap and we're doing neck exercises.
Hmm.
And finally, someone behind us is like, is everything okay with your daughter? And we're like, what do you mean? They're like, you're doing something with her neck. And we're like, oh, we didn't even realize it. We're just doing therapy while she's sitting here.
And that's perfect, and a lot of people won't get it, but we get it, and Claire gets it, and it's amazing. And that was
Yeah.
really good of you. You educated her without even knowing you educated her.
Yeah, I mean, you've had so many moments where you've had to educate or other people. And I just, when people reach out, I'm so happy you're here because it's so hard to educate them and they're not offending me, but sometimes just because I'm new to this world, I feel very guarded about Claire. I mean, I'm
Hmm.
sure, did you have those moments where you were just like, this is so hard for me to share a piece of my heart of what we've been through?
You know, no, I never had that feeling
Hmm.
because I've always been very open. I'm a very open book. And I've actually had to learn a little bit to taper it in. But um, my husband's the same. We like sharing. We like sharing about our children. We like sharing their stories. And I don't think it has to be any different just because Live is a little bit different. I think that people are genuinely curious, whether it be with your typical children or with your not so typical children, that you tell people what you're excited about, how they are different, what they do, what they're into, and their story. Every child has their own story, and just like Liv, Claire has her own story. And I think it's up to us as the parents to maybe not be so guarded or not take so much offense to people, and just kind of share. And that's how I feel like I educate. Like, I don't have to go out and speak to everybody about CDKL-5 and what it is, but I just like to share our story. And I think people really appreciate that, and they take it to heart, and they feel like we've let them in a little bit.
I love that. I mean, you are amazing because I just remember at first being like so like stop looking at her. She's fine. Like her neck will hold up. Like, she's gonna beat the odds until it really hit for us. Like, no, this is Claire's journey and this is her life. I think it took us a little bit longer, and these kids are so special and that's why they're here. But it was so fresh and so new just recently. it
Hmm.
was it was just like, whoa, this is a whole new world. In my previous podcast, I shared a little bit about the Welcome to Holland poem.
Oh,
When did you
that's
feel like you were doing your emergency landing in Holland? Was it with her seizure? Was it when you received the diagnosis?
probably when it was the weekend I received her diagnosis, because when she was still having seizures and we were going through all the tests, and I think I was still just very hopeful. I really didn't think it was going to be such a life-changing occurrence. I thought it was going to be like, okay, something we need to is happening, and then we'll figure out what it is, we'll fix it, and then we can move forward and she'll be fine. So when I got her diagnosis, it was like on a Friday afternoon. Her neurologist called us, gave us a diagnosis. He's like, I don't know much about it. You might want to give this to the doctors at Stanford and they could tell you more. And I'm like, well, one, I haven't even gotten the doctor yet from Stanford. So who am I supposed to talk to? So then I Googled, of course, just like a lot of other parents. And I think I found some pictures, and,
Mhm.
it was really, really a devastating day and weekend for our household. And I don't think we knew exactly how to take it in, but it was devastating because you see the worst, you hear the worst, you think the worst, and then you just really start to feel the worst. Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
I
I mean,
totally agree.
it was
When you
awful.
Google it, yeah, it is that you get the worst pictures that show up, and
Hmm.
I mean, it's a new diagnosis, but at the same time, there's not much research. So what you see is, I feel like it's not what you see in your child.
Right. Yeah, this
Um,
baby is still so fresh, and like you said, I'll let you go on. I could go on for days.
well, no, I just, when you meet someone and they see Liv and you say, oh, she has CDKL5, how do you explain that? Because sometimes I feel like I explain it and on a neurologist side because that's really all I've heard versus like you've been around and you've got to like talk to people and maybe you have a better version of explaining it that doesn't sound as medical of like what is CDKL5.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess it always depends too on how in depth I want to get, and how um involved the person seems, like how much they really want to know. But usually I just tell them it's a rare genetic disorder. It happens at birth. They're not exactly sure why. No, it's not hereditary. They didn't get it. Because when people hear the word genetic, they're like, oh, they got it from you or they got it from your
Yeah.
husband. And it's not hereditary. I mean, it can be in very rare instances, but these are just sporadic mutations that happen. And so I let them know, I just said, it's a rare genetic disorder that leaves Olivia severely delayed, both mentally and physically. And it also comes with uncontrolled seizures and some nasty symptoms like sleepless nights, irritability. sensitivity and vision issues. And, I let that kind of sink in, and I let it, if it, wrap their mind around it. And if they ask a little bit more, the way I usually explain it in terms that others can understand it, because it was explained to me this way in the beginning, was our CDKL5 gene is like a sentence made up of four-letter words with with spaces. And anywhere in that sentence, you can have a mutation. You could be missing a whole word. You could be missing a space. You could have, you could just be missing a letter. You could have extra letter. You can have double letters, anything like that. And for Olivia, towards the end of her sentence, towards the end of her gene, she has an additional letter. And so when you go to read the sentence, you're reading it just great, right? Like Olivia is great. And then when you get to the end, it doesn't really, the body doesn't comprehend it. It's like Olivia is, and it just doesn't compute. It doesn't add up. So that's kind of how I explain it. And so the body is just like constantly trying to get it to make sense. And it's just on this constant loop, which then causes, some other unfortunate side effects like her seizure. And it doesn't create the protein that she needs to move and walk and, hand functions, the eye coordination, all of that kind of stuff. So that seems to resonate with most people. So hopefully whoever's listening to this
Yeah,
podcast can kind of grasp that and get that.
I love that. And I remember talking to a genetic, counselor when we received this diagnosis, and they said like genetics is like handwriting the Bible, and our daughters are missing like maybe one word in that Bible, and it messes up their whole body.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like so hard to copy and duplicate. But, in my mind, I was like, oh, that one little tiny thing is what's doing this. Like,
It's
it's,
bizarre.
yeah, one thing. And, I think when I first received this diagnosis, you think, oh, it's so small. Like, why isn't there a cure or anything? And I think you kind of go through that grieving process of, you know there's nothing you can do. And that's why I also look up to you in so many ways. Is I remember sitting down with the neurologist, and people have asked me this question when they see that I now talk about CBD. When they told us the diagnosis, they said, look, there's 80 seizure meds, and Claire will have honeymoon periods with all of these meds. So pretty much what we're going to do is, try them. You can tell me if the side effects are too, are severe, and we'll take her off and try a new one. And if she doesn't have as many side effects, let's see how long it lasts. And then once she starts having seizures again, we'll try a new one.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt so lost in those moments of like, because I don't do medications like that myself. So I felt very overwhelmed with the medical system. There's nothing wrong with it, but there's just no cure for our gorgeous daughters of like, okay, so she's going to try all 80 seizure meds. So I
Mm-hmm.
reached out to you because Liv is just on CBD and a keto diet. And
Mm-hmm.
I mean, she's thriving and doing very well. And I want you to talk about her taking her first few steps and all these things. Like, Liv is doing so amazing because you are advocating for your daughter and to do something, because medication is not, it's not like a chemo treatment that we can do for our girls.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, Liv and Liv, I think, okay, let's start from the beginning, right? When Liv was first having seizures, we go to the hospital and they immediately put them on Keppra, which is,
Mhm.
anti-seizure med. And it's like at that point in time, I didn't know. I have no idea. I've never had a seizure. I don't know anyone else who's had seizures. And I was just like, okay, let's do it. Like anything to make this stop and to help my daughter. And then from there, she just kept having seizures. Then they put her on a different, or I'm sorry, they added a second one. And then from there, I was like, okay, these still aren't stopping. Okay, well, then let's add another one and wean her off of the first one. And so, like you said, it was just going to be this cycle of honeymoon periods where it stopped for a little bit and then just kept going or made him a little bit better. But with that, you get these awful side effects from this medication. And I feel like she was having way more symptoms, or I should say, instead of symptoms, quality of life on the medication than she was just having her seizures. And yes, I get that the seizures are also life-threatening, but she was a complete vegetable. She didn't want to do anything. She had no motivation. She just laid around all day on this
Mhm.
medication, and it was just not what we saw for our daughter, and it's not the life we had. I know it was already not the life we envisioned, but from here on out, we're going to do everything in our power to make sure that she can enjoy everything, because we don't know how long she'll be with us, and medication just wasn't the route for us. So we started looking at alternative options, and thankfully, we have a really great medical team, and they were totally supportive of our decision for CBD and a ketogenic diet. And at 11 months, we got admitted to the hospital, started her on that prescribed keto diet, and we haven't looked back. And it's been amazing for her.
Yeah, I still remember the day we got admitted on Halloween. So that's a welcome to Holland moment where kids are going trick or treating and I'm taking my daughter off of
Mhm.
sugar.
Yeah, right.
But yeah,
It's so
so
sad to think about.
I I know it's the things I feel like we've gone through trauma in a way because we've envisioned a life or we have to watch what our kids go through and it's so different. It's kind of traumatic, I feel like. It's just like when I had to stop breastfeeding in that moment and like that
Hmm.
pain I felt like as a mom, like it's people like they're so amazing. They've asked me if I was okay, but sometimes in those moments I just wasn't okay because I wanted to do all these things. I wanted to, sleep train and breastfeed for, a year and a half and all these amazing things that a lot of parents are able to give to their child. And we kind of got, taken away from at least one
Yep.
of our kids in that way. And I just want to explain that to people as I am so grateful for them reaching out. But there was a time that I was grieving and understanding my new normal with Claire. And I'm sure as you were, understanding with Liv, your new normal and your new life and accepting it.
Hmm. I remember that point also where I had to stop breastfeeding, and it is traumatic. It's not like trauma, it is trauma. We went through something very traumatic, and we're going to continue to have these traumatic moments and these moments that we don't realize that we're missing out on, or that um, can affect us in those ways. And I'm sure we're going to have some healing to do when we,
Mm-hmm.
finally catch our breath. But yeah, those moments are very traumatic, and I try my best, like you, to, put that happy face on. And it's hard to want to talk about it all the time with everyone when you're just exhausted because our children don't sleep and they're having seizures, and you're just worrying up, searching, scanning the internet for any more information, new research studies, this, and that. Um, but yeah, allowing ourselves a little bit of grace and time to let our loved ones in and let them know what we're going through actually goes a long way, because they can help us get through those times, and they can give us some little breaks that we
Mm-hmm.
need. Or they could just hear us vent about all the stupid things about this stupid disorder that we need to.
Yeah. I I want to bring this up because I have seen in moments of Liv's journey, you've been so amazing at this. Um, Someone brought up to me, it was a family member of, they said, like, how do you want us to treat Claire? Or, you know, when a random stranger sees that she's different, like, how do you want, us to tell them about Claire and things like that? And I said this, I said, I think the most respectful thing now that I know what it's like to be a mom with a disabled child is instead of teaching your kid to don't stare, keep walking, I feel like the most respectful thing and to educate other children is to come and introduce yourself and see that Claire, is a person and she is different and that's okay. How do you treat those moments of those teaching moments as people are wondering maybe how we as disabled parents want our children to be treated, as well as moments where I know you guys were in Legoland and Liv, and I'm gonna cry because I just love Liv and you guys so much. And someone yelled at her in a theater, and you guys had to teach them a lesson, but like it just melts my heart because if anyone I was there, I'd just be holding Liv and just loving on her because she does not deserve that. And people don't know, but how do you educate them or what situations to help educate, people that want to know how to be treated or how we want our kids to be treated?
Yeah, that was, thank you for bringing that up. But yeah, that was definitely a teaching moment for us as well as the other family for Liv. Um, and so going back to the original question, so how do I want, others to treat Liv? I want them to treat her as a little 3-year-old girl. And I definitely, when they, ask about her or, if I'm just, say we're at a park and, earlier today I was just at a play date and I have another daughter, she's 1 years old. So I had both of them with me and I had this mom, she's like, oh, are these both your daughters? And I had them both out of the stroller and they were kind of just on the floor crawling around. And I said, yeah. They're like, oh, how old are they? I was like, oh, Penny's 1, Liv is 3. And you could obviously tell that Liv is delayed. Liv's not walking. She's not as charismatic as a typical 3-year-old. So you could definitely see that there's a difference, especially when Penny's up and like walking and looking around and pointing at things and looking at things. And um, so I could see the confusion on her face. So I just, told her, yeah, um, Olivia's 3, she's delayed. She has a rare genetic disorder. So she's, a bit behind. But she can understand. She understands you, and so then I kind of wait to see how they're going to react or what they're going to say. And if they have questions, they're like, oh, she's so cute. That's usually where they go, oh, she's so cute. And I just always put on like I try to empathize with other people because, right, I'm not a seasoned veteran of how to handle these situations. My daughter was diagnosed,
Mhm.
3 years ago. So I'm like, okay, I'm still learning. I'm still understanding because when they're still a little baby, for the most part, people don't really notice too much. Um,
Yes.
but when it becomes more apparent and they start, giving you those looks, you feel a little bit compelled to explain. But I also try to remember how I felt, right? People are genuinely curious. They want to know, oh, they always think, oh, what's wrong? Like I had this elderly woman ask me one day in the store, well, what's wrong with her? I just wanted so badly to say, oh, nothing's wrong with her, but I just empathize, right? And I'm thinking to myself, okay, what she really means is what's different? How, what do you mean? What are you talking about? So then I explain a little bit that, she's delayed physically, mentally. She has, vision issues. She can't see very well. She gets very overwhelmed. A lot of times too, Liv looks down a lot because she gets overwhelmed with the complexities of our world and life. Um, so people are like, oh, she's so tired. I'm like, if I'm walking along, I'm like, yeah, she's tired. I just keep going. I don't feel the need to explain. But sometimes I
Yes,
do,
yes.
and then I'll say, oh, she has vision issues. She can't see very well. When she gets overwhelmed, she looks down or she'll look at you from the corner of her eye, but she is curious. She does want to see you. It just takes her a little bit longer. So if you could be patient with her, she would really like it. If you could be, hang out, be patient. And when people understand that they know what to do a little bit more, right? Like I'll explain to them, just everything needs to be a little bit slower for Liv. Don't, move too fast, kind of give her that time to react. She has about a 3 to 4 second delay period where like I could hold out my hand and it takes her a minute She needs to look at it. She needs to see my hand. She needs to think about it and process it. And then she needs to think about if she wants to reach for your hand or not. And she will or she won't, you know? So it could take a lot of time. And a
Mhm.
lot of people, especially in our society, they don't have that patience. But once you explain to them about it, they'll definitely try. And but for the most part, I just try to tell people, you know, she understands you. She wants to, you know, be interactive and play. So if you can give her that time and that welcoming, then you know, you'll really get to meet Olivia and who she is. Hopefully that
Yeah,
explains. I kind of went
when
off
I
a
watch,
couple different ways.
yeah, I love it. No, I love it. And I love that you take her to the park and you know, give her those experiences. And I mean, when she was crawling around and at the park, I'm like, there's like, you know, there for me, like as a mom, I'm like, see, like our kids are gonna go out and play. And I feel like that's up to society, whether, you know, how, you know, they take that in and how kids treat them. And unfortunately, sometimes I feel like it's in a learning experience for, you know, another 3-year-old to come up to live and, you know,
Mm-hmm.
maybe understand or, you know, give that kid a moment to say, oh, let me help her, or let's have those patients. Everything's not on my iPad and I can just like pull it up in 2 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, it's a
Mm-hmm.
great teaching moment. I still want to bring up that theater moment
Oh
because
yeah. Oh,
I'm just still I have to share it with the world of they don't know and I want them to understand.
yes, and that was I feel like for us, that was our very first experience. We had never gone through something like that. And you know, there's things that we did to try to avoid. So with Olivia, she gets scared too with loud noises. So there's a little theater experience at this Lego Discovery area, and it's about 20 minutes. So we go in, we have all three of our kids, our 5-year-old son, Liv who's 3, and then Penny who's 1. And it's my husband and I. I have Olivia in my lap. And before the movie started, I put her earplugs in. I made sure I had her water bottle, which is something that usually comforts her. So we were prepared. So we thought for, you know, what we thought it could be loud or something like that. And I was prepared to get up and walk out if she was getting too uncomfortable. Um, but yeah, during the experience, what you will, water shoots out at you as part of this like
Mhm,
dog is like going to lick you in the face, like the movie. So like water mist comes
mhm,
out and it startled Olivia really bad, and she
mhm,
just started screaming. And Olivia has a loud scream. So I gave her a few minutes,
mhm.
or not a few minutes. I would say like 20 seconds. I gave her some time to calm down and see if she was going to be okay. She started to calm down and had her water, and next thing you know, it happened again. The water shot out again, and she just starts wailing. At this point, I'm like, oh my God, she is not loving this. She is having a meltdown. I can't really tell if anything's happening or not with other people. I'm just kind of like, okay, I got to get her out of here. So I look at my husband and I'm like, you know, I'll wait for you out there. So I go out, I calm her down. You know, a couple seconds out there, she's fine. She's back to, you know, being happy. But my husband, he was taking a little bit of time to come out. Like after it was over, I was seeing everybody come out. And I'm like, where is he? What are they doing in there? And he comes out to me and he tells me that when Olivia was having her outburst, there was this dad screaming for her to leave. He was like, leave, leave, get her out, or you know, get him out. And so my husband waited until after the experience was over and after majority of the people had gotten up to leave. And he just, you know, gathered other two children and kindly said to them, he's like, hey, look, our daughter has special needs and we're trying our best to give her every experience that she deserves. And I'd appreciate it if you know, could give her that. And it was this mom, this dad, their two daughters, and I think their like teenage niece, and they were all just like dumbfounded. None of them said a word, none of them apologized, nothing. And my son, who's 5, was like, Daddy, I met those girls in the playhouse. She's 4 like me, or she's 4 at the time. And then next thing you know, it's like, of course he did, right? Because he's so outgoing, and they I'm sure they were just playing and whatever. So when my husband told me that, I immediately got tears in my eyes, and I just thanked him. I said, thank you for doing that and educating them, because I don't know how I would have reacted in this situation. Because it's easily to get defensive, but people don't know. And that's probably why it's a really, really good idea, especially when it has to do with children. I mean, we're in this little children's theater, to have empathy, right? We don't know what these kids are going through.
Yeah.
We don't know what these parents are going through. They had no idea of Liv's needs. They had no idea the lengths that we went to make sure that she was comfortable before this had even started, and that we had, an escape plan if something did go south. We thought about this stuff. Like, don't try to take
Yeah.
these experiences and make this even worse than it already was for her, or for us too. It's like, man, we couldn't believe it. But I was very thankful, that my husband handled it the way he did. And then what really surprised me was later that night when I was praying and praying with Liv, and I prayed to God and I thanked him for that experience, because we needed it, and it gave us the chance to have that grace, and this family may have needed it to learn and to be educated. But it was surprising that I had that tenderness in my heart to really feel that for this family, and to thank God for the experience, um, to share that with somebody else too. So yeah, it was neat
I mean,
all the way
that,
around.
yeah, that it's so beautiful to hear that. And it's so true. Like when the lights are off and everyone's in a theater room, you don't know what's around you, or just in life, or they can look typical. And I think that's what's so great about our kids is, it's a good learning lesson for so many people. It's sometimes just hard to be the teacher.
Yes, yes, 100%.
Um, I I have this one experience, and I'm just curious if you've ever, when you had Liv, when you just received her diagnosis, I had a friend text my husband, and she had a baby around the same time, and she was not coming over, and she was kind of avoiding me. And so finally, my
Yeah.
husband was standing up for me, and he reached out to her and he said, "Hey, why aren't you coming to see Alexis? Like, she talks about you and says she misses you and wants to meet your little son." And she said, "Well, I just don't want to bring my son around because I feel like she'll be so jealous and I don't want to rub it in her face." And I like, having these moments kind of like you, it just kind of hits you in the face again. And you're like, no, that's not how we feel at all. I, I don't feel that way. I love Claire and I wouldn't trade her for the world. Like, she is perfect in my eyes. I love her so much. It's unfortunate she has this condition, but I mean, please come up to me, treat me normally, treat
Yeah.
Claire normal. Like, I hope people don't pity us in that way where they want to treat us differently. Have you had those experiences too?
Early on, somebody had told me, they said, don't be surprised if you lose friends.
Mm-hmm.
And when they told me that, I was like, lose friends? Like why? Why would I lose friends, right? Like, one, are they not going to accept my daughter? And if so, yeah, you're right. Like, I don't need them in my life. But two, it's
Yeah.
because a lot of the times people don't know how to act and don't know how to be, and they think something similar to what your friend had thought, which is, but to me, in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, well, that is making this about you. You're not making this about Claire or about me. You're making it about how I think you would feel. Um, because if you really cared about
Mm-hmm.
me and my child, you would call me and be like, "Hey, I really want to see you. Is this too new for you? Are you good?" Because I mean, I have friends that have children that's Olivia's age, and they come over, and I do get upset sometimes, a little teary-eyed, and it's just it is what it is, because at that point in time,
Yeah.
a lot of the times I look at Liv and I'm like, oh, she's a typical 3-year-old. She's giving me hugs. She wants to play with this. She looks at me, sometimes, and then I see her with, next to another 3-year-old. I'm like, oh. she's not as typical, you know, and then you get a little bit of it kind of just hits you. But again, it's not going to stop me and or my friends or family from coming around her or being around her. But with that said, it does, unfortunately, it does stop people from coming around because they just feel awkward or they don't want you to feel awkward, and it's unfortunate. And if you can muster up the strength to want to explain that to people and want to explain that to people who have already done it to you, you know, then they might come around, you know. But sometimes at
Yeah.
the point in life that we're at, we can't muster up the strength. We can't
Yeah.
make everyone else feel better about what we're still trying to cope with ourselves.
Yeah. I have plenty of those moments where I'll see a 6-month-old laughing and giggling. And as we've talked about, Claire's on still weaning off seizure meds. It takes forever.
Mm.
And so she hasn't, giggled yet. So there's just little things that you see, like you mentioned, and you're just like, wow, like she is delayed or, not doing something. So, and it's not that you're looking at that kid once again and saying, I'm going to steal this child. You're just looking
Yeah.
at your kid and you're thinking,
Yeah.
wow, Claire, if you could just smile for or laugh at mom, like that would mean the
Mhm.
world. But once again, as you, Nicole, have taught me so much, is our kids write their own stories, and we just have to
Mhm.
appreciate whatever they want to put, pen on paper.
Yep, 100%. Yeah. You know, I'm a big advocate of, our affirmations and putting it out there and making sure that our children hear those so that they know that they're capable, they're able, they can do this, you know. Um, and us being advocates, like you said, weaning off that medication. Olivia didn't laugh for a full year. I didn't hear her giggle, her laugh. She barely smiled until we weaned her off this medication. And next thing you know, she came alive. And I'm not saying she laughs and giggles as much as a typical child. There's still days where she's just very to herself. But oh man, it's just there's so much more that can make her happy and does make her happy. And not too long ago, she
Mhm.
sought out a toy and she was playing with it and making herself laugh. And
Cute.
I was just blown away at that. I was like, oh my God, she found something that's gonna make her happy and she's like enjoying herself. It was just so amazing. So cute.
Oh, yes, I love that. And the little moments, right, are so much bigger in that
Mhm.
way. I mean, we celebrate the little wins that we get with these kiddos.
Oh yeah,
So my
it's huge.
last question is, because I get this all the time and you're the expert, is the ketogenic diet. When people, so I posted on the AW Lashes Pro page of, Claire's keto cal and me making it. And everyone's like, oh, I've done the keto diet. And I'm sure, you guys have, but Claire's ketogenic diet is so much more complicated because it
Mhm.
is a huge fat to carb ratio, because you see the keto breads and the keto, protein bars, and our girls don't get those because they
No.
need so much more fats.
Yeah. So, I mean, the way I explain it to people usually who ask, I call it a prescribed keto diet
Hmm.
because what this keto diet is for them, it is a medication. It's a treatment, right? Or I
Hmm.
wouldn't say medication, right? It's a treatment. And so it's prescribed. It's prescribed by a doctor. She's overseen by a team of doctors. She has to get blood work done every 3 months. She has to get her urine taken. Um, and her levels have to be monitored all the time. And there are symptoms that come along with this diet that have to be monitored. We have to make sure that all of her organs are working properly, that she doesn't get too ketotic, not too much acid in her blood. Um, so it's very different. Everything has to be weighed out to the gram. And with her ketogenic diet, there's certain ranges. And like you said, it's so much, there's a fat to carb ratio, and you really have to follow it to the T, because anything above or beyond can kick her out of ketosis or could make her levels go too low. So for Olivia, it was a really long period before we really started to see the keto diet pay off for her. And it's a lot of trial and errors because there's so many different ratios. You start out high, you can go low. And so where Liv is at, and when we take her blood ketone level, she has seizure freedom. We see some seizure control when her ketones are at in the fives, in the five range. And if anything above
Mhm.
five, and say she, I can start to see her cheeks get flushed. She's very irritable or very, like, screaming all day, and you can't find a reason. Um, or she's very lethargic and just sleeps all day, which is not typical for her. I can tell her ketones are getting to be too high, or if she doesn't want to eat. So I take her ketone level with her blood monitor, and if they're way too high, then we got to bring them down with orange juice, or right now what works really well for us is sugar water. Um, and then you got to take them every half an hour until you get her back into a range, which makes it very, very important to make sure that she stays on her ratio. She stays in balance. You have to weigh all her food by the gram, all her fats, all her carbs, proteins. Everything has to be weighed and measured so that she stays in a specific range at all times. And that means getting
Mm.
all her calories. If she doesn't have one bottle, that day, she's not getting those calories, her ketones will skyrocket. If you are out with your friends and you're going to get ice cream and you're like, let me maybe see if she'll eat some, like, I want her to have this experience too. It's like, just kidding, you just dropped her ketones. So
Mhm.
it's very different. It's prescribed, it's very detailed, and we have to stick to it. And it's very stressful. It's very stressful.
Yeah.
Um, but it's very different than the mainstream keto diet that you hear about. We can't just go and get a keto bar at the store. Her formula is prescribed. Her foods are measured out and talked about with her dietitian and her nutritionist. It's very, very different.
Yeah, I was telling, I think it was just my mom. I was like, yeah, if Claire wants yogurt, we have to add oil to it. She's like, what? There's keto
Hmm.
yogurt. I'm like, yeah, even if it's keto yogurt, we have to add some type of oil to make it more fat. It's not,
Hmm.
once again, just the keto yogurt that works for our kiddos. It is so much more fat. But it helps the seizures. It's worth it.
Hmm.
But it's a whole new world. It's takes hours and hours of feeding them. Because Liv, just like Claire hates, like, she doesn't love food. Like, towards at the
Yeah.
beginning, she'll start to gag with her bottles. I know that
Hmm.
sounds crazy. And then towards the end, when she's full, she'll gag. So that's how I know when Claire's done, is when she is gagging on her food.
Yeah, yeah, and it's stressful because for Liv and many children, on this diet, they have to eat all their food. It's not an option majority of the time. So when Liv goes a day and she's not, or she only finished half of her bottle, then my husband and I are sitting there and trying to force it, or we'll wait 30 minutes and trying to do it again. And it's very real to a lot of people. It's a huge struggle. And that's why we're considering, putting a G tube in, because this is her treatment. This is her medicine that essentially is helping her with her seizures. So she can't miss it. She can't not eat. If she has a cold or a stomach bug, she can't not eat because this is what's helping her seizures. And without this, I mean, nobody wants to see their child have a seizure, but it's also a very real, real life-threatening symptom of her disorder that we're trying to keep away.
Yeah. I mean, just to recap of last month, two of our CDKL-5 kids passed away. One was 2 and
Mhm.
one was 3, if I'm not mistaken, or was it 3
Yeah,
and 4?
she was three
Yeah.
3 years and like
So,
4 or 5 months. She was born the same month and year as Olivia. So for our household, that one hit us
uh,
pretty hard because I mean, this disorder can really just take a turn for the worse, and you be totally blindsided and your child could just be gone.
Yeah. I mean, and it's something that haunts us. That's why, just like you guys, Claire wears, a heart rate monitor at night, and it's hard to sleep when it does go off. I don't know if I can sprint in there fast enough.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
It's different
I'm
life.
so grateful. Yeah, it's like we are in Holland, and we got to take Liv and Claire to Holland during tulip season and let
Yeah.
them explore it in
Yeah.
their lifetime.
Yes. Yes. And this is as hard as some moments can be. It's still a very beautiful life. Our children are going to live very full lives. It's going to come with some struggles on our end and especially on their end. But it's funny because God doesn't give you what you want. God gives you what you need and what these children need, and it is a true blessing.
Yes, Claire has taught me so much in so little time. So I'm grateful for her teaching me patience and softening my heart into this world of what really matters. Um, and so I, Nicole, and I'm just so grateful for you. And I'm so grateful you were on this podcast with me, because I don't think anyone else could explain what I have been through and what, our children go through. And I just feel like you were the perfect person to bring on here and just give people a little piece of CDKL-5.
Thank you. And thank you so much for spreading more awareness and helping people better understand CDKL5 and all children with disabilities. They just want to feel that inclusion and that acceptance and to speak to them as they should be spoken to as a human being, as a child, or whoever it may be, and just give them that time and that attention is what we all we ask. Just give them that time, that attention, and just speak to them how they should be spoken to as a human being. And just wait, they will surprise you. And I have so many people who tell me Liv gives just the best hugs because Liv will reach out to you and she will wrap her arms around your neck and put her head into your shoulder, and you know that she gets you, she appreciates you, and she appreciates the love and attention. So, um, yeah, just everyone who's listening who has a chance to meet Claire, please give her the same love, to speak to her that you would any other little baby girl, and show them the world, and they will blossom.
Well, thank you so much, Nicole, for giving us a little piece of your life and Liv's life. I just wanted to mention one more time your guys' Instagram, because your story is so beautiful. It's Life with Liv at _ CDKL5. Please go give her a follow so you can see Nicole and Liv's journey together. It is so beautiful. And you guys can kind of understand a little bit more about Claire if you guys have any questions with maybe her future. I mean, all CDKL5 kids are different, but that being said, just a little glimpse of into Claire's future. So thank you guys so much, and we will see you guys next week.